Hello everyone, welcome to Mefa Tutorial again this week. I'm so glad that you are ready again to see our video tutorials. Thank you for liking our video tutorials, thank you for your comments, and thank you for sharing our video tutorial with friends and people who are so much in need of all these tutorials. Today, we are talking about something very special called Chroma. And what we are looking at in Chroma is the condition for shooting Chroma. The condition for shooting Chroma. Let's go.
Seems so high, valley seems so deep, tempest rain.
Yeah, first, before I look into the condition for shooting Chroma, I want us to know what makes Chroma possible. What makes Chroma shoot possible? All of us understand that shooting live, shooting like the way I am presently, I am not on Chroma. There's a background right behind me, and the background is lit with a particular type of light. What makes Chroma shoot possible is the three elements of picture composition: the background, the foreground, and the subject. The ability of making these three elements to be independent of one another is what makes Chroma shoot possible. When you are shooting Chroma, what you are actually doing is to separate the background from the foreground and separating the foreground from the subject. Separate the background from the subject and as well separate the foreground from the subject. So you are making these three elements to be independent of one another, which makes it possible for you to replace whatever is in the background when you are shooting the Chroma with another background, and also bringing up a different foreground from whatever you have while you are shooting your Chroma. Now, this independence of these three elements make Chroma shoot possible. Now, let's look into the condition for shooting Chroma. Number one condition for shooting Chroma is perspective. And this perspective is in all elements that you are going to add to your shooting. Number one of the perspective is the perspective of the background. Now, when you are shooting for Chroma, you need to understand the background you want to use in shooting that very particular subject. You need to understand the background on which you want to place your subject. And you understand the perspective at which the background you want to place your subject is before you shoot that your subject. Now, for example, the perspective of the background is a mountain, and you want your subject to be climbing that mountain, and you want to shoot the subject in a Chroma. Now, assuming the position of climbing the subject on a Chroma. So you must shoot that your subject in the perspective of climbing. In the perspective of climbing the exact mountain you want the subject to climb. That is what will make it possible for you to place your subject on that mountain that you have prepared as your background. It will now be very easy for you to place your subject on that mountain, and it will sink because you have shot your subject in the perspective of that mountain. Another condition of perspective is perspective of lighting. And that condition of perspective is perspective of lighting. Now, when you are shooting for Chroma, you must understand the perspective of your key lights. You must understand the perspective of your source of light. And that your source of light is determined by the background that you want to place your subject. Now, in your background, obviously in the background you want to use for your subject, there will be a particular source of light on that background. Now, in that background, when you are lighting for your subject on Chroma, you must light your subject from the perspective of the source of light, from the perspective of the key light that is falling on your background. Now, lighting in an opposite perspective of the source of light that is lighting your background will make your Chroma shoot to be very obvious that it's a Chroma shoot. You know, when you are shooting your Chroma, you are not actually shooting for the audience to know that you have shot on Chroma. Because if you are shooting and the audience is getting to know all that you are shooting is on chroma, it's actually not the very best way of shooting chroma. You actually need to know the source and the direction of the key light on your background before you can light for your subject. It's also very important. This is the very good way by which you can conceal from your audience that you have actually shot that thing on chroma. You know that you don't really need to tell your audience that you have shot whatever you have shot on chroma. In fact, it is not the best and it is not appropriate for you to let the audience know from whatever you have shot that you have actually shot on chroma. And one of the perspectives by which you can conceal this from the audience understanding that you have shot on chroma is the perspective of your lighting. You need to position your light according to the source of light that is reaching your background. This is another perspective. The third perspective is perspective of action. Perspective of action. The third perspective is perspective of action. I'm still going to come up with another topic called acting for chroma. But I need to explain the perspective of action to you before I talk about that one in another episode of this tutorial. Now, in perspective of action, actors need to know the perspective at which they are going to act before you can shoot on chroma. Take, for example, actor is going to fall on the chroma, or any strange happening is going to happen on the chroma, is going to happen to the actor. Actors need to know the perspective at which they will react. They need to know the perspective at which they will react to whatever is going to happen to them on chroma, so that it will sync when you are actually adding that thing in the post-production. Maybe there is an arrow flying towards the actor in the movie, and then you want to shoot the actor on chroma, and you want the arrow to fly across the actor. Then you need to allow the actor, you need to tell the actor the perspective at which they will perceive the arrow that is flying across them. This is what we refer to as a perspective of action. One more important condition that you need to take note is your camera angle. Camera angle is also very, very important when you are talking about shooting for chroma. You need to understand the angle at which your background is shot before you shoot your subject. All of this thing is also referring back to the background on which you want to place your subject. This is very, very important. It is always very important for you to know the background you want to place your subject before you even shoot the subject at all. This is one of the problems that we are having in our shoots. Many, many times we shoot the subject before we know the background we want to place them. And this is not the appropriate way of shooting chroma. The appropriate way of shooting chroma is for you to know the background before you shoot your subject. You are placing your subject in a pot. You are placing your subject in a pot. You must know the pot. You must know the perspective at which the pot was shot. You must know the size. You must know the angle, camera angle at which the pot was shot before you can shoot your subject. And that will help you to get the best of that chroma shoot. One of the beautiful things that you do with chroma is to conceal from the audience that your shot was actually taken on chroma. And if you want to do this, you need to follow all this perspective. Thank you for watching Mefa tutorial today. God bless you.